about 5:05. So let's get started. I think we got the majority of the folks we're going to get. We'll leave the doors open for a minute or two, and then if there's too much noise, we'll shut them. So my name is Lex Flagel. I'm the chair of the SSE Diverse Careers Committee, and on behalf of all the members of the committee, I'd like to thank you for showing up and welcome you to the now second annual Diverse Careers workshop. We had one last year in Austin. You can see the kind of the overview. I'll step through it quickly before introducing our first speaker. So we're kind of here today to learn about career exploration, and this is something that's acutely important to grad students and postdocs. And our speakers will share with you that this is it's a skill, just like any other, just like pipetting or something. It's something you have to learn and practice. And the goal for today, this is 4 hours. The goal for today is that you get some of the basics of that skill set. Many of you probably have a lot already, but the overall goal is to make sure that you have some basic knowledge about how to do effective career exploration, and then we'll have a panelist discussion where we actually get to meet people with backgrounds just like yours. So these people all have PhDs in evolutionary biology and related fields who've wound up in interesting and diverse careers, and it'll give you an opportunity to see what that is like. So a couple of quick process notes. We're taping. We're going to try and put this on YouTube so that people who couldn't make it can see it. The other things, I just want to kind of go quickly through the schedule. So Lenny will give a brief introduction in a moment, and then Joanne will give a talk about a call to action, which is kind of like, let's say, a gentle nudge or kick in the butt to like, hey, you need to be active in your career exploration. Then we'll have a panelist interview, and I'll mention our panelists in a sec, that Judy is going to moderate. And of course, I realize you don't know any of these people right now, but you'll meet them in a minute. We'll have a 30-minute break, fruit, coffee, that sort of thing, caffeine. And then another presentation about networking with Joanne. And so, of course, I don't know, I bet almost everybody's had this experience. You're at a conference or a workshop or whatever, and you want to talk to someone about their work or their skill, or maybe you want to join their lab. You have some interest in their work, and you're really nervous about going up and just talking to them, right? And so this is the second half after the break is really all about that. And networking is super key. It's probably the most essential thing to getting a career. And so Joanne's going to give you some kind of crash course in networking skills. And again, many of you probably have most of these basics, but it's a good sort of refresher then. And then we'll have 90 minutes where we're going to have these 6 panelists. So Lenny, who's the first speaker, has founded a startup, and he can tell you sort of about that world and the transition from evolutionary biology to a startup. Shannon is a faculty at a community college, and Suzanne's a faculty at an R1 research university, so they can tell you both about those kind of academic jobs. Rich Cron is here from the Forestry Service, so he can tell you about working for the federal government in a research capacity. Myself, I'm a scientist at Monsanto, so I can tell you what it's like to work at a really big company, which is a nice contrast to Lenny, who works at a much smaller startup. And then Sarah Sider works for a museum in California, and she can tell you what it's like to be a museum curator. So it's a mix, right? And it's not, the idea isn't that every one of these people has the exact job you want. It's like speed dating for job stuff. So you'll learn how to network, and then it's up to you. You have 15 minutes with these people, and what we're going to do is you'll get into groups, and instead of having all of you guys rotate, we'll have the panelists rotate to you, and you get to ask them. I think the obvious things are, what's a day in your life like? How'd you get this job? Is the interview process crazy? Do you do research 90% of the time, or is it mostly HR kind of stuff? I don't know, but like just ask them what their job's like, and it's 15 minutes, and you can dip a little toe in the water of that area of the post-academic world, and you can see what that looks like. It might be something you want to explore further. So I think without further ado, I'll introduce Lenny. And so Lenny is a startup founder from the Bay Area, and I'm sure he'll tell you about that. So thanks, Lenny.
You can, I won't be talking much about the startup, but you can ask me about it during the roundtables. Thank you, Lex, and I want to especially thank Lex for everything he has done over the last 3 years. It's been 3 years of people working on this workshop. It was 2 years to prepare for the first one that we did last year. This is the second time, and there are a lot of people now who want to thank the society that provided the funding and the support for this. I think every society should be doing this. As of 2 years ago, there was nothing, right? This is now the second time we're doing this, so I'm grateful to Mohammed Noor for sort of boosting this and setting this in motion 3+ years ago, and to all the people that have been involved over the last 3 years. So I don't have any slides. What I would like to do is just go through your responses on the survey. Give me just 1 second to have the resolution flipped. What I want to do is go over your responses to the survey that each of you, I think, has filled out on the way here. Changes. Okay. There we are. What's this? I'm also a Mac person. Okay, so here's what you folks answered to the 5 or 6 questions before the pre-workshop survey. So on the scale of 1 to 5, how confident are you about your overall career prospects? One of you is very confident. And then, of course, we have a range, which I assume is the reason why a lot of us are in this room. Question number 2 was how prepared, right? Rate how prepared you feel you are for a career other than being a tenure-track professor at a research university. And I have to say, since this is the second time we're doing it, there's great progress. We've gone from only 1 person saying last year that he or she is very prepared to now 2. That person could be taking this workshop again, so maybe that's the increase. But this is completely normal, right? That's exactly where we all are in graduate school, in postdoc, just by the nature of what we've been training to do, what our advisors are familiar with, right? They've never looked for jobs essentially outside of academia. So we are being prepared for an academic job, usually, and that's why a lot of the responses to this are not exactly confident. The good news is that while most of us don't know this, we're actually really well prepared, most of us, if we've gone through good graduate training for a lot more than an academic career. Right? We don't notice this, and I remember myself in my 4th year of grad school in Berkeley, I was this close to dropping out. I felt science is not for me, it's the 3rd year blues, I got it in 4th year, and I'm looking for, okay, well, what kind of jobs can I apply for, what can I do? And I remember this depressing feeling of, it's not just not prepared. I feel like grad school actively unprepared me. Before I went into doing experiments in the lab and computational biology and genetics, I was math major, computer science minor, I was database administrator, developer for a company. I had offers from Wall Street, and I excitedly, after undergrad, go into bioinformatics and then go into grad school. And 6 years later, after all that, I'm about to drop out, and I feel like I am less marketable than I was before grad school, right? Like, I'm a Perl programmer now, and no one in the Bay Area is going to hire me with Perl. I am really good on the biology of the evolution of the yeast silencer in chromosome 3 on the left-hand side. But if I'm not staying in academia, there's not much market for this. So not only did I not feel prepared, I felt really hopeless. And what we don't realize while we're focused on our research problems is just what else is happening to us, to our training, along the way to our PhD and during the postdoc. And what's happening is that you're becoming a scientist, and that is what makes you valuable. So I'm not going to go into the details, but one of the surprises of, since 2012, we launched protocols.io. It's a startup, as Lex said, and I thought it would happen on the side. I didn't expect to leave academia for it, but then realized it's one or the other. And in the 4 years that I've been on this full time as the CEO, as we've been growing, find you no business degree, right? No experience running a company or a startup, talking to VC is zero. What I realized is, this was one of the big surprises to me from the whole startup thing, is I realized just how good our graduate training is for doing exactly what I was doing. I can't imagine a better program that I would have gone through to be the CEO of a startup, right? And if you have the time, you can. I'm not going to go through this in any detail. I wrote a blog post called PhD is perfect for a startup. So if you Google that, you can go in to a rather lengthy post on all the similarities that I've seen about the preparation in academia to what is required for running a startup. I'm not building the platform. We have a CTO, we have an engineering team, right? It's not my computational skill. It's not my knowledge of yeast genetics, but there are many other things that you can take a look at the post that are relevant. And it's not just for startups. Don't get me wrong, I'm not here advocating that everyone should go start a startup. It's the last thing you want to do if you want security and financial stability. But if you do want to do it, you're very well prepared for it. And that's not just something that's relevant for startups, it's something that's relevant across a really broad range of career options, right? What I discovered through this is, for example, how valuable you are in law, right? How valuable you are for VC firms. This is just my experience. And those are not things that we're typically aware of, but the real value is in you becoming a scientist, and the society does appreciate it and would love to have you in a wide array of careers and job opportunities, right? So that's question number 2. Question number 3 is rate how aware you feel you are about career options beyond being a tenure track professor at a research university. And again, it's not surprising, the same 2 people who are very confident, are highly aware, and the rest of us are more like me when I was in that 4th year about to drop out, where A, I'm feeling unprepared, and B, I don't know what there is, right? Obviously I know that there is publishing, you can be an editor. I know that there are pharmaceuticals and you could be a research scientist there, or you could be in academia, and that's about it. And I've heard that 1 out of 1,000 people can get into McKinsey, but that's about all I felt were my options, right, after 4 years, and that's when you're thinking, well, and then so if I get this PhD, what am I going to do with it if I'm not staying in academia? And that's wrong. Just as I said, you know, what I discovered through the startup experience, it's not just startups, you find out that law firms will hire PhDs with 6-figure salaries. They'll pay for you to go to law school if you want to, because they're doing IP. Not everyone should go to startups, not everyone should go to law. VC world, venture capitalists, they will hire PhDs to do due diligence, right? To look at the deals at the companies that are nascent and starting to judge whether or not it's likely to work. Just a small slice from my world, what I'm familiar with, on things that started opening up after I left academia. And so, on that note, because I said the point here isn't to tell you to go and found a startup, on that note, we created a website. It's Evolution Post PhD. If you Google for that, that's the resource site for this workshop. And not this year, but the year before, what we did is we ran a survey just to see what are the types of careers and jobs that evolution folks tend to end up in, right? So if you go to this website, you can explore the summary of the, so we asked faculty that are members of the SSE and the other societies. We ask them to tell us where are the people that have trained with them, those who did postdocs, those who didn't, those who stopped with a master's degree. A lot of them responded. We got lots and lots of replies. We summarized them here, so you can get a feel for the broad types of categories where people end up. And we also have the detailed responses of the specific jobs that people have. So you can go to the Google Doc where we've compiled the answers on where are the people that did PhDs and postdocs in these labs. What are they doing now, right? So write down the website, explore that, because it's not just my word, but you can see the breadth of where people like you end up in and outside of academia. Right? And going back, to keep this short, going back to our questions, right? So where we feel not that much, but there is a lot for us. And the next question is, how likely are you to apply for jobs which are not tenure-track faculty positions? Right? And again, you can see the distribution. Most people are not sure. They might or might not be, and so we have this breakdown, and I want to reinforce something that Lex was saying in the introduction, what the purpose of the workshop is. It's not to tell you to join a startup or a law firm. It's not to tell you to leave academia. Not at all, right? A lot of you will become professors. A lot of you will be in the entire range of the disciplines and careers that we're talking about. The goal here is to help you think about what will be the right fit for you, right? And to explore and to equip you a little bit, to give you some tips and just get you started on thinking about what the right fit is for you in terms of careers, be it in or outside of academia, and to equip you a little bit with how do I go about it, because one thing that I find is it's really encouraging to tell people you're valuable to society and there are lots of options for you, and we all get excited, and then what, right? And then you leave the workshop, you come back to your room, and you're thinking, it's great that everyone needs me, but who, and what do I want, and what will I like, and how do I get started? And so hopefully, at the end of the workshop, you're not going to come away with the career for you, but hopefully you'll come away a little bit more confident with a set of action items and ways to get started on this, and then to explore what is the right fit and how you go about it. Okay, and I promise to keep it short. 1:23. Any questions on the introductory part? So again, the website is Evolutions Post PhD, and we're continuing to grow that as a resource. It's still a beta site. One thing I did forget is Mohammed also started the LinkedIn group specifically for people who have gone through this workshop, for members of the evolution field. So you should go, and all of us are periodically adding articles on career exploration, resources. So we'll be growing this site, the LinkedIn group, and with that, I will yield the floor to Joanne.
Yeah, and I should have everyone's emails too. So if you guys are all okay with that, I'll spam everybody with some of these links in a day or so. So you don't furiously scramble to find every.
Okay, so, so thanks for having me. I was just telling people this is my 45th state. I've never been to Oregon. I have 5 states to go. So at first I thought it was Portland, Maine. I was like, I don't want to go. Lenny called me, and I'm like, no, Oregon. He's like, you'll go across the country, but you won't go to Maine. So, so I'm really excited to be here. I love to talk about science careers. So I'm going to talk a lot about myself in this talk. Alternately, people like it or hate it. If you hate it, I apologize. I hope you learned something anyway. I am not one of the official panelists, but I'll be around during that time. So I can be at a table if people want to skip one rotation and come chat with me about any of the topics here or some other topics that I'm passionate about that I won't talk about today. This is the kick in the pants. Some of it is a little harsh, but I am also not here to tell you to leave academia. I am here to remind you, though, that at least in my field of molecular biology, I don't know as much about the evolutionary biology community, 85% of current PhDs will be outside academia within 5 years after their degrees. So my goal is to make sure that you're all still doing science, and there are many, many ways to do that. But I'm a big supporter of the academic training program and the way that it creates scientists, and the outcome is exactly what you want for all those different things. So, and I'm happy to talk about that more later. So how do we think we make decisions? This is what you're being trained to do. The experimental method, we have hypotheses, we do experiments, we're very logical, and we use this really well as we're doing our science, and we're really crappy about it when it comes to making life decisions. So when I tell people this number, 85% of you, and did anyone know the numbers in your field?
It's about 75%.
75% of you will not be in academia 5 years after your training, and you're like, that's okay, I'm not going to think about that now. I'm going to go to school for no money, I'm going to make crap, I'm going to do it for like 12 years, and then I'm not going to make any money after that. And by the way, I may not have children along the way, I'm going to wait. This is really crazy, okay? And we think we do this, but what we really do is this. Yeah, nobody's talking about careers, my PI's a little ambivalent, you know. So I'm just going to ride with that and listen to all these other people when I'm actually pretty smart, but I'm not going to do anything about it. So you cannot do that. You will not be working. You will probably not be working if you don't think about doing your career work in a directed fashion. So this is the personal responsibility area. So I work with a lot of postdocs. There are many, many great mentors. Many of them are here in this room with you today. There are many, many crappy mentors and PIs. First of all, maybe if you are in a position to choose a good one, okay? Okay? And do some research, not just because their science is cool, but because their mentorship is cool. And that's a problem. Unfortunately, I often get to people too late. They're 5 years into a PhD or they're 5 years into a graduate degree, and their advisor says to them, I can't write you a recommendation if you're not going to academia. I'm sorry, I can't support that. That's unethical. They shouldn't be allowed to receive scientific funding if that's what they do, but that does happen. Please take responsibility, change your situation if it's bad, get away from a toxic mentor, and even if you have a bad mentor, let's make the most of it and you take responsibility. You can do it. You all have the skills and the talents to do that. I will say with one exception, and that is sexual harassment. I always bring this up publicly now in groups of scientists. So recent studies show that at scientific conferences and during fieldwork, 65% of women are subjected to sexual harassment. Not necessarily raped, but treated differently, overtly groped, propositioned, usually by superiors, by more senior people. And if you are a person who is not cis or binary gender identification, you're even more likely to be subjected to certain types of verbal harassment. So, and you have a very good diverse community, but I think it's still happening. It's happening everywhere, so I can't imagine it's not happening in your science community as well. So that's one exception. I'm trying to urge people to take legal action. If it happened, it would probably happen to someone else who is in the lab. If you don't get together and go as a group, we will never get these people out. And I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of my talk. So, okay, so why are we still talking about this? This is an NSF study of 130,000 PhDs. What I'm trying to avoid is this, unemployed and not using science. So I have a picture of me at 9 years old holding my first microscope. Scientist is something I am, it's not something I do. If I'm not doing science, I'm not going to be happy. And so I don't want you to go through all this training and be here, and that's why I'm here today, just to help you do the preparation to get where you want to be. So why is this a problem? So why is it not included in every graduate program? So my son went undergraduate engineering to MIT. Literally from day 2, they were talking to him about how to get a job. Every professional school, dentists, doctors, lawyers, economists, everyone is talking about career readiness, diverse skills, networking, workshop. At MIT, they call it charm school, so the engineers can actually learn how to interact with people. That's what they call it, right? Biologists, nothing. Even the biologists at MIT, by the way, nothing, okay? So here's the problem. There is an inherent conflict of interest that I have to draw your attention to. the academic system is set up for you to work cheap, really hard, okay, so that your PI can get grants and their career can be successful, and yours potentially along the way as well. I'm not saying that that's the unethical part, but they want to keep you. You're cheap and they want to keep you as long as they can. They don't want to let you go, okay, and they certainly don't want to see you, not follow in their footsteps and continue their legacy, right? And even the best of mentors have a little bit of that, in the back of their mind when they're in academia. So it's inherent conflict of interest. They also don't want you to spend time not doing that stuff, the paper stuff, and the stuff that helps the lab, right? And so, ethical mentors realize that they have a responsibility. You are a trainee. I will remind you that you are not making enough money to not be a trainee, okay? At your level of education, you could be making twice as much money doing something else if you were not a trainee. Okay, so they have to be training you, okay? And so the ethical mentors realize that, and you have some great labs turning out great science and great people going into all diverse careers, and they're proud of them. And that's the model that we need to see. So I'm in favor of changing the structure so that mentors are rewarded for the success of their graduates in more venues than just academia, because I think it's really important that we reward good mentorship. So the system itself is a little bit broke. Once again, see slide here, you're going to have to take for this generation, until we fix that stuff, you're going to have to take your career in your own hands. Okay, so we have to change the script. This is all over. So you know about bias, right? I'm going to talk about implicit bias a little bit. We are like inundated with this from undergraduate, right? You're wasting your PhD if you leave academia. You decided to leave. Nobody leaves being a scientist. Once you're a scientist, you're a scientist. It doesn't matter where you're doing science, you're still a scientist. Regret that science will not benefit from her talent. This person went to a pharmaceutical company. Science might still benefit from her talent, Leaving science can be a good career decision. How can that be good after 12 years of science training? That's never good. And the other direction, 5 illogical myths keeping talented PhDs stuck in academia. Also not good. So any of this judgmental language is really counterproductive, and it's creating a bias in your heads because you're hearing it so much. So the answer is, you have different talents, different strengths, and you can all contribute to science in different ways, every single one of you, right? And some of you are academia bound, and some of you don't belong in academia, and that's all fine. So we have to get away from these scripts. Okay, so you have to be a little introspective. And so, it really helps working with mentors and working mentoring relationships. I can't go into details today, but at the Agene blog, I'll talk about Agene a little later, blog.agene.org, I've published a book called Mentoring 101 for Scientists, which works you through the finding of mentors, the using of mentors, being a good mentee, being a good mentor, focused on scientists, but it's good for anybody really. And so mentoring relationships are people you learn from. Don't get stuck by the name mentoring, like something deep in Greek, It's just people that teach you stuff, okay? And you need different people in your life doing that. You don't have one mentor, you have mentors. But those mentors and friends and colleagues, even your peers, so I'm a very strong advocate for peer mentoring groups. There's a whole article in the book on creating a peer mentoring group to do some of this introspection. What's important? So one thing, I'll give you an example of discovering something. So I've been working in pharma for about 12 years at the bench, and I love bench work. I'm quite good at bench work, and it's very satisfying. I love every day being able to get a result. I love that, And so that was my payoff for 20 years of science at the bench, right? And then I had a bunch of people in my group that I was going to be promoted to group leader. It was too many people, and I'm in pharma, there's some bureaucracy. I needed to basically take off my lab coat. And I was very conflicted about it, many, many passionate discussions with mentors and my husband. And when I really thought about it, what is it that I really love about science? It turns out it's not pipetting, although that was fun, and it's data. I love data. I love figuring out where data went wrong. I love figuring out how that experiment. So when you have 20 people reporting to you, you see a lot of data. So it turns out that managing a group where I was managing data generation was super satisfying for me. And that was a great transition for me, right? So, but it took a lot of sort of talking with people and working through. So you may be at an earlier stage. You may hate bench work. You may hate field work. You may find out that you did this thing and you hate it, but you still love science. So what is it you love about science? That's the thing to deconvolute, because wouldn't it be great in 10 years if you were still doing science and doing something that most of the time you liked? So think about that, right? So what should you look for? So scientists need to be learning all the time. So it doesn't really matter in general. I find people doing all kinds of diverse careers. The careers that you should choose should be ones of growth and learning, because that's basically, in my opinion, the definition of a scientist, learning new stuff all the time. So, and when I got bored, that was what led to my career transitions and bucking to do something new. It was when the thing I was doing was too easy, perhaps, right? Coping and balance. So fortunately, this is getting a little bit more press. You know, we cannot drive, if we are going to have both genders able to work, or all genders able to work equally, we have to be more fair about lifestyle. So all the big successful PIs that worked their butts off, worked 80 hours a week, and gave their whole careers, their wives were home taking care of their families. We also need to procreate. We have an excellent gene pool. You are highly educated. Okay, you cannot all decide not to have children, so that we're, not that you shouldn't only choose that if you like, but we can't all say we're going to work so hard that we can't have children, because our women and our men, we need that diversity, but then we're not going to let them nurse or whatever, you know, which is stupid. You know, so we have to do something about coping and balance. You can look for that. There are workplaces that have good, reasonable coping and balance lifestyle. Atmosphere and social exposure. People like to work with people they like. So if there's jerks in the lab, don't go there. You know, like it's a basic thing. Sometimes you have to take a job, but if you find yourself that you're working with jerks, and that's happened to me before, I left, right? Because change is better than being stuck in a situation where the people, you're not sympathetic with the people. There's some issue with values. So this came up in our last seminar, quite a conflated way. So, you know, if you have certain ethical, so I don't think I could ever work for a cigarette company, for example. That's not in congruence with my values. But certain jobs along the way, you know, you may work for something that you don't value everything, but you value the role that you have in an organization. And maybe you're making change from within as well. So you do have to make sure that your values aren't threatened in some way by what you're doing. And that can be very important. But it turns out that salary and benefits, especially us, we've been giving up salary and benefits for a long time, right? So salary and benefits are really not the thing. These are the things that engage people. So you want to look for workplaces that promote this type of, whether they be in academia or outside of academia. So how did I get here? I have a Harvard PhD. I had a baby in graduate school. I was about 6 months pregnant when I defended my thesis. My advisor was super helpful because there were no rules, as there are in many places now. He just paid me as if I were still in the lab, kept me on. I worked from bed and did some computational work for a while, like, you know, sort of from bed. I was lucky I had a natural delivery, so I was pretty much up and around. I was tired but functional most of the time. Then I went back to the lab, did a little bit of work after my degree, and then he helped me get a job in pharma. And I'll talk a little bit about that. I went to pharma for 15 years, 2 companies, same office. Abbott bought BASF halfway through my time there. And then I'll tell you the story a little bit about the transition into biotech, which was super fun. I was employee 18 or so, for-profit biotech. My children were in middle school. That might have been a mistake. That was the most time sort of crunchy job I ever had. And then now I'm at a nonprofit called Aging, which I'll tell you about. I put some flyers on the table as we go into the talk. And I'm very nonprofit. I've done a lot of nonprofit work, so I've sort of landed in this place where I get paid to do nonprofit work, which is like awesome. It's like the best job I'm ever going to have. But all the things I did brought me to that. So none of those things were mistakes. And you'll also notice I got promoted 3 times at Abbott into different roles. When you're not outside of academia, the path can be pretty rocky, and it's not like this, it's kind of like this, you know? And so, but all those things helped me grow. They didn't close doors, they just opened different doors to me and gave me different experience. So you have to sort of be ready for that when you leave the academic path. Things can get a little bit interesting. And that's part of the learning and fun, I think. So how do people get jobs? Well, they get jobs by knowing other people. So why is it so important to know other people? Why are referrals so important? And you have a very small community, so it's probably even worse in your community, I would say. This is true academia industry too. Academia, who's reading your grants, who's, you know, reviewing your papers, who's in the hiring committees. It's all the same people, right? So why is knowing people so important? We're going to do the networking a little bit. Yeah?
So they can go for you to get the job and put in your word.
So put in the good word. That's the key, right? So, yeah, so it's a trust thing. Hundreds of applicants for jobs, right? And so most people can pull it together and be nice and sane for the day of an interview, right? Most people can do that. And you know, you may hire them, and then 2 weeks later they pull a knife on somebody in the lab who used their pipette accidentally. That actually happened to me. Had to be escorted out by security. So I call this the crazy factor. There are a lot of crazy people out there, and when someone refers you, so Lenny can say, hey, I know Joanne, she talks a lot, but I've known her for a long time. She's stable, she's good, she's productive. Like that referral is super important. 100 resumes, yours goes to the top because you've just erased the crazy factor, okay? So that's why it's so important, and we're going to talk about knowing people at the workshop later, so I'm not going to dwell on networking stuff right now. But so how did I get here? It's about relationships, right? So referral, that was the first thing I said. My advisor told his friends, I have this graduate student, she talks a lot, she's really good at the bench. 3 interviews, 1 offer, I took it and I worked there for 15 years. So I did not know how unique it was at Harvard to have an advisor who was industry connected at the time. I was too naive to realize that. Incredibly lucky, okay? Did not have enough money to do a postdoc. My husband was in graduate school, I had a new baby, I didn't want to stop working. So I knew that academia wasn't for me, which we can talk about later, but I made a fairly precipitous transition because I needed money. So. Second one was I knew the person who hired me. That's the other thing that happened. So they knew me. They knew I was working on RNAi. They knew I knew a lot about RNAi. And a friend came. We were having lunch. I was at Abbott 14 years and 10 months or something. And we were having lunch. He says, how's it going in Abbott? And I said, well, I think it's time for me to move. Who stays in one company for 15 years anymore? I'm getting topped out, da-da-da. He said, I'm starting a company, an RNAi company, with Craig Mello, the Nobel Prize winner in RNAi. Do you want to come be our research director? Yes, I do. I would like that, and 4 weeks later, I gave notice. 2 weeks later, I barely interviewed. Because when they know you and they want you, you barely interview at a startup, right? So that's a great way to get a job. It comes to you. This last one, by the way, both of these jobs were never advertised. So I would never have known about them if I didn't know people. So we're going to talk about having relationships later. The Adjian job, when I got laid off from the biotech, which is very common after 4 years, I laid myself off because I was on the management team. That was awkward. And then, a bunch of people said, hey, there's this job at Adjian. They're looking, and I have to tell you, somewhere around here, I was having, one of my mentors and I were having coffee, and she said, you should be a CEO one day. And I'm like, no, it's never going to happen. I'm not a CEO, I'm a scientist. That's never going to happen. And did I owe her dinner over here. And so it was many years later. It wasn't here, but it was here. And so, you don't know where life is going to take you. But this just happened to be the perfect job for me, and all my friends told me that through my network. Okay, so what can you do to get ready? I'm not going to go into details here. A lot of this stuff is also in Adjian blogs. You can do tons of stuff. So it falls into categories. Communication, hugely important. Again, this doesn't matter industry, academia. This is just preparing yourself with skills that are transferable across the board. You have to be able to talk about stuff and talk about your science. Of course, you always have to be working on your technical knowledge, pushing the edge, learning the most technical stuff, do good science. I should probably have that as the first thing, do good science. It's pretty important with all the things that I'm going to talk about. Leadership and management. So you're actually, when you graduate, especially with a postdoc, you are highly educated. People that hire you assume that you know how to manage people. They assume that you're old, actually, for the workforce. Like my son went right from undergrad into a job and he was managing somebody a year later already. You're like years past that, okay? But most of you have very little experience managing people. Maybe you've managed an undergrad and your community's pretty good about that. You guys have a lot of interns and mentorship. But you really haven't done much mentorship. So it's a good thing to demonstrate on your resume that you can do that and get educated about it. There are a lot of ways you can do that. Finally, I talked about this in the workshop this morning. Not that your field is not collaborative, but you can be a scientist in academia and not collaborate too much. You can put your nose to the grindstone and get papers with just you and your advisor. Science is getting bigger, it's getting a little harder to do that, but you don't really have to demonstrate that you're a team player. Everywhere else in the world, that is not the case. Most projects are collaborative and on teams. So if you can demonstrate that you work effectively on a team on your resume, again, that's a really good way to make yourself attractive as a candidate to other types of jobs. Okay, so professional development. I was doing all those things, all kinds of different things. What did I do? So I've managed a lot of people slowly but surely over time, more and less. Sometimes my job has had more managers, sometimes less reports. Actually, now we're at about 80 at Adjian. I did a lot of volunteering. So this was the part where I was sort of getting ready to move into nonprofit. So this was where it came about because I was quite incensed by the lack of diversity at my company. So I grew up in a very gender-blind house. My advisor in graduate school was very gender-blind. Of course, I did well in college. Girls always do well in college. And then, I graduated and I got to this company and after about 5 years, and there were no women senior to me. There was one female director. I went to meetings for a week and saw no other women. And I had this light bulb going off. We were 50-50 in grad school. Where did the women go? So I started doing research because I'm a scientist, and we had just the beginnings of the internet then. I realize this is hard for you to imagine. And I went on and I found the Association for Women in Science, and I discovered that the AWIS chapter in Boston had folded in the 80s because we were done. Everything was equitable. We had Title IX, it was all finished. It was all going to be worked out now. And I was like, what the, so I restarted the chapter, and a lot of my network and a lot of my relationships came through doing something I was very passionate about, which was diversity in science work. I also say I founded a diversity council at Abbott, which was not as effective as my AWIS chapter, although we did move the needle a little bit. And that was a pretty fun experience, and those were very formative experiences for me, and I may talk about it a little bit later this afternoon. So, that was another part of gaining skills. So practicing all those skills I showed you here happened a lot here. I'm starting a chapter, I'm organizational, I'm leading, and I'm like pretty junior here when I'm doing this stuff, right? But I'm getting all this practice in a safe space. So join your postdoc association, be on the graduate committee of the Evolutionary Conference next year. Whatever it is, there are a lot of opportunities that you can practice those skills in a safe space. And gain confidence as well, presenting, organizing, planning, working on a team. All that stuff can come out of work that complements your science. So, you have to volunteer for stuff. You can't just say no. You can't just say, I'm too busy, I have science. And I know busy, I had a kid in grad school, so don't tell me I don't know busy, okay? So I know what it means to be busy, but you have to schedule this stuff, this career stuff, into your time. Choose one other activity. Figure out how you're going to meet people. So I had a rule at Abbott that I have lunch with another human being twice a week. As an executive director, I do it like 10 times a week now, coffee or lunch. But at the time, I really just wanted to have a sandwich, put my head on my desk and go to sleep, really, as I had like a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and like no sleep. But twice a week, I made sure to really go out there and do stuff, right? And so sometimes we're very good with checklists. You have to figure out what tactics will work for you. Okay, so this job came to me. Can you run this company? We were about 18 people at Agene at the time. I'm not the founder, and I can talk later on if people want to know about the founding of Agene. It's quite an interesting nonprofit. I was pretty scared, to be honest with you. And as I entered the interview process, it took a while to be confident enough to say, I know enough to run a company, and I know enough to manage people I don't know have to know everything, I have to manage the people who know everything. And so, but this is the keep calm and raise your hand part. Opportunities come along. You can't let your imposter syndrome, sink in. You just have to sort of bite it off and say, I'm going to get the help I need. I'm going to figure out how to do this, right? So Agene is a nonprofit that helps scientists share internationally. It's very in keeping with my diversity values, so it's a super fun place for me to work. We share a lot of things, mostly plasmids. How many people here do molecular work in their work? Yeah, so I don't know. So maybe you've heard of that. How many people have heard of Agene already? Okay, not so many. So we store all these types of materials and some other types of materials. We collect them from scientists around the world. We have deposits from about 50 countries, and we distribute to scientists in about 95 countries. And we started out really small. When I came to the company, we were distributing about 150 items a day, which sounds big, but now we're doing about 600 items a day and many, many more different types of items. This is what the packing room looks like every day. And we will, so we make money we charge for distribution. So the more we distribute, the more we grow. So we started with 16 people, now we're 80 people, and we're doing all sorts of new initiatives in international science sharing and opening open science as much as we can. So it just really super fun to have landed in a place where I'm sort of congruent with my values and my science as well. We also have a lot of resources. So one of the things we do is education. We do this for free. PhD scientists will answer the phone and help you figure out what you need for your molecular biology experiments. It's a tech service role, a super fun role for them because they like to teach and they like to be experts in something that may suit you as well. So think about technical service as a possible career path. We also have these ebooks that I mentioned. Some of them are technical in science and some of them are careers. So we have one on managing people for scientists and one on mentoring, as I mentioned. We have a new one coming out on fluorescent proteins. So we also have a blog twice a week. It's both careers and science. And so all these things that are happening, distribution, we have business people, we have all these different roles. These are the Agenes. So PhD, so here they are. We've also won the Best Place to Work award last year, which was super satisfying for me, because that's my job, to make it a great place to work. So these are all the things that PhDs do at our company. And a couple of them are bench science. That's new because we're starting a new initiative on distributing virus, prepared, ready to, AAV and lentiviral vectors, ready to go. But these are all PhD scientists doing all these roles at the company, and they're all super happy, evidence back again to this slide, So none of them feel like they sold out or they're upset. In fact, our blog manager did an internship at the company, went and got his PhD at Harvard, and when he was 2 months before defending, came back to Agene and said, I want to come back and work for you. And during that time, he had written a blog, done science communication, completely prepared himself to come to Agene and say, I'm back, take me back. And we did, and he runs an incredible blog that gets about 100,000 views a month. And so, that was incredible career planning. We used him as like the poster child for like PhD career planning. He totally did everything he needed to do for us to immediately hire him back. So, and the last thing I want to talk about a little bit is diversity, just because I know in this community, especially in the scientific community, it's becoming a very hot topic. I started out working in all types of diversity. So at Abbott, one of the other things that happened when I had my light bulb and crisis go off about women, I also realized there was no other diversity in our company. So I started a diversity council, and I went to like the one black guy, and I said, you have to be on my diversity council because you're the only guy. And he goes, yeah, and I'm in every single photo shoot. Like, I have no time for this, it's bull, And we had no Latinas, like literally none. It was ridiculous, it was crazy. So this poor guy was in every photo shoot. And I went to my friend who was gay, and I said, you got to be on my diversity council. You're the only gay guy. And he's like, no, I'm not. Yeah. And I'm Jewish, so I've got a Catholic and a Hindu and a Buddhist and a Protestant and an atheist. We just went the whole, because Christmas was coming, and we had to have everybody represented. So that was like a super formative experience for me. Being with those different people, they're still all very close friends and colleagues. We didn't get a lot accomplished because we weren't in a great setting for it. It's one of the reasons why I left the company, actually, because I felt like I couldn't make a difference there. There's a Yiddish phrase, the fish stinks from the head. So if you don't have support from leadership in making change, and fortunately, diversity and bias is a much bigger topic, 15 years later, thank goodness, in society. So we're doing this all the time. How many of you are labeled postdoctoral fellows? Is that your official title? How many women are postdoctoral fellows? Yeah, I think we should all be called postdoctoral honeys. That's my new laureate. There's other words you can use. Postdoctoral scholars. It doesn't have to be a boy word. So implicit bias is a thing that's just like happening all the time, and we just don't even realize it. So I spent a lot of time doing diversity work, and so this is the life part of my biography. I think it's really important that even diversity who chooses to have children, who doesn't choose to have children. If you think that just having children is your work-life issue, you have a partner, what if you get sick? What if your partner gets sick? What if you have a disability? What if your parents start to need you more, which is happening to me now? So diversity and work-life balance is not about children for me. That was one part of my story, but it's not the only part. But I have been doing diversity work ever since, and pretty actively. So currently I'm working in both, Agene is sort of radically diverse. We're working very actively on making a diverse environment, which is super fun about running a company, by the way, because you get to experiment with all. You're like, oh, I am the head, I'm the fish. So like I can say, this is what we're gonna do. We are gonna increase our numbers by this, we're gonna have metrics, and we're actually doing a really good job at that. So pay gap is huge, continues. The first job that you get after it's not standardized by your postdoc, women will make 75 cents on the dollar. It's ridiculous. And if you're a woman of color, it's even worse. So you're a nested minority, you have 2 hits against you, if you will. And if you're a trans woman of color, you're really screwed. So, it's really a problem to be facing. We all have to face. Academia is not leaking. The numbers are not great. I wish I could say it's changed in the years since I've started working on this. Women are still more likely to leave than men. We need men advocates in this, by the way. Choose good partners. Have partners that care about your career. You both have to care that your career happens, because otherwise it's almost always the woman. I'd be happy if it were even 60-40, 70-30. It's like 95% of the time it's the woman whose career suffers when one of the couple has to take a step back. So that's just not fair. I'm like, I don't want to say I'm going to sound like a child. It's not fair. But, it just doesn't make any sense. I don't believe the women are stupid or less talented or less interested in science. We just don't believe that. So harassment, public harassment is, no longer acceptable. Although this is crazy. I don't know how many of you are aware of this guy, Dario Mastropieri. He put this on his Facebook before he could take it down. There were many, many social media shots of this. He says, my impressions of the conference of the Society for Neuroscience in New Orleans. There are thousands of people at the conference and an unusually high concentration of unattractive women. The supermodel types are completely absent. What is going on? Are unattractive women particularly attracted to neuroscience? Are beautiful women particularly uninterested in the brain? No offense to anyone. So this guy has a lab with women. It's unbelievable, right? He put that up there, and he actually faced no repercussions. This was a few years ago. He's still at University of Chicago, I am not kidding. He does research on the evolution of human behavior. His has not evolved, okay? I looked him up, by the way, he's no looker. So, I don't really get it. His lab still has 50% woman, you can look up his webpage, right? Totally don't get this at all. I mean, I'm sorry to have to call him out, but it's completely ridiculous to me that this guy still has a lab. And then this happened, okay, and hopefully, I'm not gonna go into this in detail, but you know, these two, there were about 4 or 5 high-profile scientists finally, basically lost their jobs over overt harassment, right? Overt harassment. And so, but this is really not the problem, because now we're starting to get these. Thank God women are feeling more confident coming forward in groups, because the one person that comes forward pretty much always gets shut down. I don't know if you've read the controversy at Uber, but the woman who came forward there, she reported the harassment, which was overt. She received an email from her boss saying, I have an open marriage, will you be my partner? My wife has another partner, will you be my partner? She had records of the email, and HR told her that it was a first offense until she talked to the other women and found out it wasn't a first offense, right? So, but if you are the one person that comes forward, you're almost always shut down. That's what happens. Happened here, happened for years. This guy, Jeff Marcy, hundreds of women complain about his behavior, right? And I'm focusing on women here because I know more about it, but it's not just a women's issue also, especially people who are not, again, cis-binary gender identification, a lot of issues, a lot of problems. So there was some social media outcry. These are the all distractingly sexy women. He said women were distractingly sexy in the lab. This woman is collecting cheetah poop. This woman is in a bee suit, and this says, mixed gender lab, no falling in love or crying permitted. But the problem is not that, it's implicit bias. And I talk about this at conferences now because it's not just about who you work with, it's about your science too. We're actually biased about our results. We're biased in our experimental design. Using the practices of not being biased makes us better scientists. So we really have to think about our hypotheses being more open-minded. So how many of you work with human cell lines at all? Does that happen in this community too much? Not too much? So you guys probably are a little better at thinking about gender. And I'm in a room full of molecular biologists, and I say, what gender is your cell line? They have no idea unless it's Henrietta Lacks cells. Those are the only cells we know, because she has a book now. So we know about her cells. But nobody else do we know, right? So think about that. Think about the implications of that. There's a whole different chromosomal makeup in those cells. And we're doing all this study, and you know how interconnected biology is. It's nuts, right? So we have to really be thinking about bias, not just about our colleagues, but about our work and about everything that we do. So this is the typical, we all do it. We all do it, underrepresented groups do it, represented groups do it, women and men do it, every race, every gender. And so I just urge you to educate yourself about this. I have a blog called Spot the Sexist in You, which has a reference to some of the data on this, because I know you guys like data. And I just did a webinar with Elsevier on the issue of implicit bias in scientific publishing. So, and I do there's quite a bit of work on this. So please educate yourselves, women, men, everybody. We all need to be more aware of this, and this is my small effort in the world in getting the word out about bias. So where do you want to get? You want to be in the zone, right? You want to be doing work that sometimes you're so happy you lose track of time. It doesn't happen all the time, there's crappy parts about work too, but sometimes it doesn't feel like work. That's what scientists get. It's one of the joys. This morning one of the women described it well. It's the joy of science. So sometimes you have to find the joy. And that's my goal, is to help you all sometimes be in a career where you sometimes find the joy. So treat this like a research assignment. You can get data. You can go online and do some research and figure out and meet people, contact your alumni networks, figure out who's doing cool stuff, interview them, get information to help your options be open to you, be more aware. Be prepared to work in science first, like doing what you're doing as a grad student, because sometimes the transition can be hard unless you do stuff along the way to get ready. But then you can move. So when you get to that next job, that was the, raise your hand, learn new things, do stuff you didn't expect. Don't be whiny. This is an academic thing. It does not work anywhere else. You can't go to a job interview and whine about stuff. You have to be, I want this job. I am excited about this job. I cannot tell you how many people come interview with us and they're not enthusiastic, and then they whine about something in graduate school or their advisor or something. You can be whiny in your head over wine, over drinks or something. You cannot be whiny in the career world. So that's an academic sort of angsty thing. If you like that, you better stay in academia, that angsty thing. It doesn't work outside of academia. So I say this because it really saddens me when people come and interview at AGI, even people that I know, and they blow their interview. Because we're like the happiest place in the world. We don't want you whining, Activate your network and nurture it. We're going to talk about networking this afternoon a little bit more. And go to the blog if you want more information on bias or on any of these things. I also have a lot of topics about bias and mentoring associated with my LinkedIn profile. I'm happy to take a couple questions now. Is that okay? Yep. And then I'll be around later. So thanks very much. Good luck. Questions, pushback. I love pushback. Yeah.
So you said you're trying to be a diverse company. How do you approach the hiring process?
Yeah.
To encourage diversity, because I know there's several ways of doing that.
Yep.
Like taking the name right off of the person, and one's actively looking
Yeah,
for
so that's
diversity.
right. So we do as many of the best practices as we can. The taking your name off the resume thing is not. So one thing we do is we educate everyone about implicit bias all the time. So you have to do it all the time. So you have to do it routinely. Everybody, it has to be in the forefront. Every hiring round, we remind people about bias. We seek diverse pools of candidates when we can. So for example, we hire into our lab interns, we hire from our local community, especially in job start programs, people that are perhaps in school. Many of them are immigrants. They're looking for positions to get their first job. And they start with us part-time, and the ones that are successful move up the ladder into full-time. And so that's an incredibly diverse group. We have people there from Uganda, Ethiopia, Bangladesh, India, Cape Verde, Taiwan. One white girl from Boston, she's the minority, and so it's a very very diverse pool, and that influences how we look, and it attracts other underrepresented groups to the company. We have a very active LGBTQ. We're only 80 people, but we have pretty much the whole LGBTQ spectrum. Once again, we get great people. They come, they see how comfortable we are with that profile, and so we get people who are willing to take our lower nonprofit salaries because they want to work in our place. So they're usually overqualified, which is good for us, but so part of it is who people interview with. The other thing we do is we have a very public interview process, and this is really important for academic promotion and hiring as well. So you are not allowed to just say you have a gut feeling or this person is a culture fit. We have very defined requirements for the jobs, and everybody that interviews for a job, all the people interview all the candidates, and then they get in a room and they have to publicly say why they prefer which candidate over another with data. So that's been shown to make a real difference. You can't just say, well, I like this candidate. Usually that's the candidate that looks most like you, because that's, and actually it's very bad. There's a business case now for diversity, right? It's very bad to hire people that look. So we serve scientists in 95 countries. We are not served well by us all looking the same. It makes no sense, right? So we also seek language diversity and cultural diversity because we like to have that in the company. So we represent about 80 people. We represent about 30 countries in our employees, right? So we're doing the best we can, and we talk about diversity all the time. And neurodiversity as well. One of our employees has Down syndrome and one is Asperger's. So we really believe in matching the right person to the right job, and just because you don't have the same neuro profile that I have doesn't mean that you can't do your job well. So the woman with Down syndrome makes 300 boxes a day. She loves her job. She comes every day. She's been coming for 4 years. And it's been really fun to watch her become a real part of the community. So at first it was awkward, and then now it's totally not awkward. So does that answer your question? Yeah.
It's not as big of a practice here in the States, but in Canada and Europe, a lot of people are trained just with a master's degree, and then they stop their graduate training. So they're not like, it's a different situation than having a PhD, but you still have done some graduate training. What differences differences would you recommend in your approach to training master's students and entering the workforce with just a master's degree?
Yeah, so I mean, I think what I'm seeing in
Just a
this.
master's degree, or is it just saying
Yeah, a master's degree. Right, so I'm a firm believer that you should not go for a PhD and then that's what you want to do, because that's a lot of school and a lot of time to be poor, potentially for no reason. You know, so I think part of it is just during that time, really exposure to what are the opportunities. So I worked in industry in pharma, and some of our best technicians were masters, and they were life technicians. They didn't want to lead labs. So this is actually also like, again, I'm sorry, I'm very focused on the molecular community because I know that better than what you guys do field work, and I don't know that career profile quite as much. But so you can, there need to be roles for scientists who don't want to be PIs but get paid to do bench work. Because some people just want to do bench work for their whole careers and they're super good at it, and we lose them because they don't make enough money to live. You know what I mean? So, or they're like postdocs forever, and that's not, you know, so these research positions, like places like certain institutes are starting to have those. So technicians, you don't need to go to do a PhD to get the kind of cool on-the-job training you get. And so if you, that kind of science. We also have master's students at Adgene who do science communication, which is an excellent field. Some of them are doing business analyst type roles in the biotech community, which is very thriving in Boston. So that's you know, so I think you can do a lot of things with the master's. I think the principles still apply. You just need to take those 2 years to superpower, explore the options, you know. And also geographically, you know, one good thing about living in a place where there's density of jobs is you're gonna, if you move jobs or you lose a job, you can go to something different. So I don't always advocate that people move for work, but it is, so especially if you have the two-body problem, if you have both people in a couple are in science, going to a dense job area can be better. So is that helpful at all? I think, yeah.
Just a quick note on the evolutions for post-PhD site. The survey responses that we have, we broke it down to basically answers for people who, what are they doing now if they got a PhD, but there are also a lot of answers from those who left after master's degrees. So
Yeah.
you can also look through what are people with master's degrees.
Yeah.
That was one of the explicit things for differentiating.
Okay, thanks. I'll be around later if people have more questions.
Fascinated. So, as promised, Joanne is now going to give a presentation on networking, and then we are going to pair. We have 6 panelists. So after the presentation, we'll pair off into 6 groups, and you will stay seated, and the panelists will rotate with you. We have 90 minutes, so that's about 15 minutes per panelist, so you get to meet each of the panelists and ask them about their career and practice some of the skills in networking that Joanne is going to share with you. There's one other process detail I'm going to mention just for the sake of mentioning it. Next year, Evolution's in France, I think Marseille. We're not going international. So this is going to go on hiatus next year and then back 2020. So I just mentioned this in case you enjoyed this and you go back to your lab.
I'll come to Marseille.
Yeah, I know. The problem was, the honest problem was, I know nothing about careers in Europe. I think it's going to be primarily European attendees, and I don't want to try to tell them things that aren't true, you know what I mean? So long story short, if you go back to your lab and you enjoyed this, just know that we're on hiatus for 2018, and then we'll see, hopefully we get funding to come back in 2019. But anyway, this is process detail, so take it away, Joanne.
Okay, so I usually do this like a 2-hour workshop, so this is a 30-minute primer, okay? So make sure that you're sitting next to someone you've never met. That must be possible here, because you're geographically dispersed, right?
Never met?
So,
From what time point?
today, ever, a stranger. Sit next to a stranger.
Yeah, we're
I was like, wait, I already literally introduced myself. I don't know.
Try to move around. Sit next to a total stranger. Yeah. Okay, so while you're doing that, okay, so I am not going to talk about going to a conference and exchanging cards with people that you never speak to again. This is not that kind of networking, and that's why this is called Not Networking 101. Okay, and so what I'm talking about is meeting people and building relationships naturally through your career with an eye towards helping them and getting their help as mentors, as advisors, as supporters, as connections. This adds value for academia and industry. I have to broaden that because there's much more than industry. Academia and non-academic scientists. If people in academia think that networking isn't important, who's reading your grants, who's on your approval committees, who are you collaborating with, you know, you have to meet people, you have to. And so I'm going to start with one caveat, and that is do not tell me that you are introverted and you cannot meet people. I'm married to a super introvert, like the kind of guy who has to keep an extra shirt in case he has to go to an event because he sweats through it, he gets so aggravated. You know, but he managed 600 people in an engineering group at Lincoln Lab, part of MIT. So introverted people are perfectly competent leaders and mentors and collaborators. Maybe you don't like events, but one-on-one communicating with people, coffee, discussions, you have to find your way of networking. So I'm not asking you to be different, I'm actually asking you to be you. Okay, I'm just asking you to be a little more open-minded about being open to other people. So we're going to do this pretty quick. So what is networking? It's just developing relationships. It's not just making contacts. It's a key to accessing opportunities, personal and professional. You know, and you know, you have to. You will be more successful if you make yourself a little more friendly. And I'm going to tell you about that. So it's not just for job hunters, but it is how people get jobs. And in your community, which is so small, right, the more people you know, the better it is. I already explained why it's so important for referrals, right? It's the crazy factor. So even more, you just don't hear about the interesting and diverse opportunities unless you meet different types of people. If you only meet people doing exactly what you're doing, you won't hear about things like Agene, which is like, you know, an awesome, unusual job to be in, right? And so that's part of why you do this, is to hear a diversity of opportunities. So how do people get jobs? This is a scientific study. It's like the stupidest study. So networking, 52%. 8% recruiters, that's meeting people. Conferences or events, that's meeting people. Alumni, network. Serendipity, I think that's networking. And LinkedIn, the networking website. My guess is that that other up there, that's probably networking too. So something like 90% of people find jobs because they know somebody, okay? And since a lot of what we do is work, this is an important thing, to have new opportunities. So I already talked about the different ways people get jobs: referral, direct contact. As you get more senior in your career, and sometimes even junior, recruiters play a big role in the science firmament. That little tiny pie, 5%, those are the people that get jobs from sending resumes in cold. Okay, does happen, miracles occur, you know, but it's really not the way that most people get jobs. It's not even the way that people hear about opportunities, right? Certainly not at our level of education. So here's how those played into my career. Talked about referrals. My advisor introduced me to 3 people. I had no idea how lucky I was. He was on the board of Genetics Institute, which was the first biotech in the East Coast. And he was interested in industry as an academic, which was very unusual 30 years ago. I didn't know how lucky I was, so he didn't balk when I said, hey, I need to get a job, can you help me? I met someone that I met in my career. I was very interested in RNAi. Did I tell this story? I already told this morning? I did. Okay, sorry. So that was the person that I knew, and then here, again, it was the same thing. So this is just, I'm just one person. I can't even tell you the hundreds of other opportunities that meeting people have brought to me in ways. I mean, I don't know, I'm here because of people that I know, and almost every talk that I get. Actually, I get a lot of talk offers on Twitter as well now, so there is a role for social media. So you can't wait, because people are human. Okay, I haven't told this story yet, right? So when I left Abbott, after 15 years, I spent more time with those people than I spent with my family. And at the first holiday after I left, I sent 100 holiday cards. I'm Jewish, so New Year's Hanukkah cards, with pictures of my kids with a personal note to like 100 people at the company. So how many people do you think bothered to fire me an email or even just say hi or send me a card back in response to my card and my personal note? 2. Okay, was really disappointed and sad, actually. But, you know, I had moved on, I had new friends, whatever, you know, I was pretty sad. So 6 months later, Abbott has a big layoff. First one. I had cut staff. And how many people do you think linked in with me because I'm like the super networker and I'm in Boston and I have a job at a cool biotech, and all these people were looking for jobs and suddenly they're out on the job market and they don't know anybody because they're jerks, right? So I got dozens of LinkedIn requests. So how many people do you think I helped? Because I'm human, right? Okay? So just a bare minimum of being nice, you're going to help the people that are just a bare minimum of nice back, okay? So it really helps to put yourself out there a little bit and stay in touch in even just the smallest meaningful way with the people from your past. And we'll talk a little bit more about that after. Okay, so I'm not asking you to do the things that feel uncomfortable. What I'm asking you to do is just to do something else. The way to network is just to naturally put yourself out there. Get involved in something. Be on the Postdoc Association, be in the Grad Student Association, be on the EVOL 2018 Trainee Planning Committee. Whatever it is, find that thing. In general, I recommend that you go deep on one organization. Don't do 20 activities. Go deep and do it well. You're going to meet more people. You'll keep seeing them over and over. And you'll build meaningful relationships with people that really know your skills. They can't say what a good scientist you are necessarily, but they can say that you're a good communicator, you're a good leader, you work well in a team. They are other references for your life. And the people here sitting with you, you could be her boss in 10 years, right? So peers are important networks. It's not always that important guy at the podium. He's too busy for you. Network with anybody around you opportunistically that you like. So, and it's really important that you, so do work with people. That's really my way of networking. Most of my network is from my diversity work, being in AWIS and being in other diversity. I was passionate about that. I met other people who were passionate about that. Maybe you're a rock climber, maybe you're an oboist. It helps if there are some scientists involved in your activities, because that's like a kind of a useful professional network as well. But I meet people in all kinds of crazy. I'm Orthodox Jewish. I know all the Orthodox Jewish biologists in Boston. All of my kids went to the same school. I can cold call any of them. You may have a cultural network or a family or a country that you're from or whatever it is. You use all those networks. Alumni networks are really good. So, if somebody says to me that they went to Penn, I'm much more likely, just a little tiny bit, to help them. We develop relationships in very unexpected ways, right? So you have to do that. So I've had rules because I'm a scientist and I'm busy. So I've had a rule for many years. So how do you fit this into your schedule, right? So one is to join an activity or to actually do something with people. Outside of your organization, potentially. Another one is to make rules. So I've had a rule when I was working at Abbott, I had lunch with another human being twice a week. So I really just wanted to eat my sandwich and go to sleep on my desk for 15 minutes because I had a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old and very little sleep. But twice a week, I always made sure that I met with someone outside the company or even within the company to strengthen relationships, to constantly be talking to people and learning about the company, learning about other parts of the company, right? So, okay. One other thing I talk about at conferences is sit next to a stranger. So we're going to practice that now. So you have to tell people what you need. It helps if you know what your needs are. You want to be specific about what you need. So this is a little thing to get used to is when you tell people that you need something, they actually like to help you. So people love to give advice, right? And so saying to someone, I'm having a dilemma. I'm looking for information on X. Do you know anything about that? People love to talk about that stuff. So getting more open about your needs and what you need, what you're looking for in a non-sort of, now if you wait too long until you're desperate and you need a job, it's sort of like dating when they sense the desperation. That's not the time to do it. The time to do it is when you're really seeking knowledge and you're not like in a bad situation. Later on, those people will come back. So the reason why Benjamin Franklin is on this slide is because he had a very interesting thing, and this is one of my favorite shows. I have some blogs on this. It's called the Benjamin Franklin effect. This is a known effect. So for those of you who aren't from the United States, he's a founding father of the United States, and he wasn't such a nice guy. This is not well publicized, but he was pretty nasty, actually. He had quite a few enemies on the Pennsylvania legislature where he was working. And so what he would do is when someone he didn't get along with, he would ask them to borrow one of their books. So books were a bigger deal in those days, like an iPad now or something. It was actually quite a large favor. He would borrow their book, he would read it, he would return it, and thank them profusely for the favor that they had done for him and how smart they were to buy a book, right? And what he noticed was that when they did him a favor, they liked him more. It turns out this is a social science phenomenon we can now explain called, solving a cognitive dissonance. If I like you, I must help you. I helped you, I must like you. you. And this actually works. So if you're not getting along with someone in your lab, ask them for restaurant recommendations for a month. Go to the restaurants, tell them how smart they were and how helpful it was. You will watch their attitude change for you. It's freaky. Don't tell them I told you and don't overuse it. It's a really sneaky psychological trick. It's actually very effective. But the reason why I tell you this is that actually people like to help. 99% of the people. So the first rule of networking is don't worry about the jerks. Yes, there are the people who won't help you, who won't be that nice, who will just say no. Perhaps maybe they're not jerks, they just say no. Or they won't answer your email. That's okay, move on. There's a lot of other people. So don't try and network with people that you don't like. It's a big waste of time. You know, network with people that you like. So it's the same thing with Benjamin Franklin. Okay. So let's practice. So I'd like you to sit with someone that you have never met, quickly introduce yourselves as to your basics, where you live, where you study, and share one professional struggle you are having and could help with, and one memorable personal detail. Okay? So we have about 5 minutes. We need to move quick. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do this. Okay? Go to it.
All right.
We have a number of things. Yeah, there you go.
I study human variation in biological and I wrote professional struggle. I'm trying really hard now to get my prototyping actually started because they're nonsense. I studied health in undergrad, so it's kind of fun. But I don't consider myself a biologist because I only study things that are
I'm a postdoc at University of Michigan. I'm evolutionary genomicist, sunflower relatives, trying to learn something about demography and history of species and populations. So I'm a postdoc for about 2 years. I guess the actual professional struggle is doing that, finishing the work that I did. Formal dinner with the United States ambassador.
What did you talk about?
Not much. Just what I remember him asking me is what I did in college. Yeah, because I was studying right at that time. But it was a memorable experience. He wrote in these bulletproof sheets to go. It was me and my grandfather and a couple other World War II vets that had been shot down for Serbia. So it was kind of a commemorative thing. So you both, I know you probably see graduate students.
Okay, come back.
So you're getting the highlight.
Sorry to interrupt. I know you'll have more time to chat. Okay, so that wasn't so bad. You just networked. That was it. Okay, that was all it's about. So what I made you do there was talk about something professional and ask for help, and that creates a very interesting conversation, right? So you have something to talk about. And I asked you to talk about something personal, because in this country, it's quite cultural. We develop relationships by talking a little bit about our personal selves, not just about work. So you can't just go into it and be like, do you work on LCK 527 phosphorylation? You know, unless you meet the person working on then Stark 529 phosphorylation. You don't have anything to talk about. So you have to take it up a little bit and be a little bit personal and have something to say. So networking is tiring. You can't do it all the time. Even extroverted people, like, if I go to a conference and I'm working it hard, I go home that night to the hotel. I do not go to the mixer. I get Thai food and will sit in front of the television by myself. I'm totally worn out, okay? And so it is tiring, but if you can put yourself into it for the event or for the program, you can get a lot out of it, right? So you have to have something to say. So do you watch Downton Abbey? Watch Downton Abbey. Don't they have like the most scintillating dinner conversation, right? They're working at conversation. I do not want to be like an old Luddite. I'm on social media. I totally get 140 characters. I'm a big tweeter. But you have to like converse with some effort. So otherwise it goes like this. Hi, I'm Joanne.
Hi.
Hi.
Adam.
Hi, Adam. How's it going?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Good.
Yeah.
We're done, right? Yeah. So, but if you actually say that to me and I'm at a conference, this is how are you enjoying the conference? I'll say, I'm totally enjoying the conference. I have never been to Oregon. This is state number 45 to me. How many states have you been to? So I will have something to bring to this conversation that's somewhat memorable and somewhat interesting, so we can actually talk. I love to play this game with myself because I meet people from all over the world. How long does it take before we find something we have in common? And so, I'll be talking to some politician from Senegal, and we will both have a mother-in-law that's a great shopper. It's a great shopper. My mom can't shop for me. My mother-in-law can buy me anything. It's incredible. Or, we're both really into composting. Whatever it is, right? Where will you find that personal connection? Because that's the person that you're gonna remember, and it's gonna be a memorable thing, right? And then having this work conversation, this honest thing, I'm struggling with X, talk to me about it. That person is gonna remember helping you. So that's all I'm talking about. Don't try and do it for a whole day, but put yourself into situations where you, like an event, or sit down next to someone at a seminar. You're both at the same seminar. You have something to talk about, right? Even within your own organization, meeting your peers is super important as well. Okay, so how can I help? I do not go into networking situations looking at what people can do for me. I always look what I can do for them, and that karma comes back to me a million times. So, there's so much you can do for other people, even at a very, even if you're early in your career, right? So you're reading papers. People don't have, who reads all the papers? If you read a paper that's pertinent for someone and you can say, I read this paper, I think it's pertinent for your work. That's like a super nice favor. If you're at an event and someone is standing by themselves and you say, hey, come talk with us, that's like a super nice thing to do, right? Or you say to someone, hey, Marcy, this is my friend Mary, I think you guys should meet. That's like it's just like these little small things that develop relationships, right? Really interesting. When you go to an event, you should have a business card. Why? It turns out that the exchange of a physical business card improves people's relationships. Someone who you get a card from or give a card to is twice as likely to return your email if you contact them later, because you have exchanged an object. It's a weird psychological thing also, but it's how we develop relationships, right? So I think this is also why introverted people are good networkers. I'm not a good listener, but if you're a good listener, you can really be an excellent networker because you're really good at listening to people, what they need and what they have to say, and asking good questions. So you don't have to be chatty Cathy, you can just be yourself and do it networking your way. So following up, people always ask me about this. What do I do now? So networking rule number 1 was don't network with jerks. Networking rule number 2 is if it feels creepy, don't do it. Okay? So I get this question a lot. I met this person at a conference and I don't really have anything to talk to them about, and I don't really think I should call them. So don't call them. That sounds creepy, okay, so that's not what we're talking about here, But someone that you had a really nice time with will always be there if you need them. So hey, I remember this guy I met at this conference was working on that assay. You can email him and say, hey, I remember you were working on this assay. Do you have a protocol for that? Do you have advice for me about that, right? That's not creepy. But there's this one guy I met for coffee 3 years ago. Every quarter he sends me an update. Okay, we have absolutely nothing in common. I have nothing I can do to help him. I'm totally, we're not friendly at all. And it's a little creepy, and every time he emails, I email back and say, nice to hear from you. Okay. So, okay, so, but this doesn't mean that you shouldn't be nice. If someone gives you their time and mentors you or has coffee with you, you can send them a letter of appreciation. I love to hear from people who, when I help them, they email me and say, hey, you helped me, here's how it came out. So I love that. And there's never anything wrong with sending an email that says, thank you, I enjoyed your company. That's just nice, right? There's nothing weird about that, right? So that's one way we stay in touch. So one of the things I do like to tell people is that this is my LinkedIn network. actually it's bigger now, this is an old slide. I have 3,000 LinkedIn connections, okay? And this is an old app, part of LinkedIn that they don't have anymore, where you could like map your community. So there's like my pharma community, my biotech community, that big blue thing is my diversity community. You know, I have like these, I think there's one little part that's like the Jews, you know, like there's like this weird, right? And I'm like in the middle, right? And so, do you think I could possibly stay in touch with all these people and have a life and a family all the time? No, you don't have to stay up with all the people you ever meet. Some people move in and out of your life, and some people will pop back up later. But they're there for you when you need them. So I'll give you an example. In grad school, there was one other grad student who had a kid. And she was the only one who at all understood what I was going through. Like when I told my advisor I was pregnant, he looked at me and I realized he had no idea if this was good news or bad news. You know, my entire lab was completely like when I had my son, I was actually 2 weeks early, and I called the lab and I said to my lab mate, can you take my plates out of the incubator, Bruce? And he hung up. He said, sure, no problem. He hung up. Called back and I said, Bruce, don't you know why I want you to take my plates out of the incubator? And he said, why, Joanne? I haven't had my coffee. And I said, because I had a baby. And he goes, that's not Joanne. And he hung up the phone. I was like, so really did not get it. Michelle got it, right? So I spent a lot of time talking with her. So we graduated. She went off to academia, became a professor at University of Michigan. I'm off in pharma. Nothing to do with each other for 20 years. So I'm going to Michigan to give a talk about AWIS. For association, and I wanted to talk to the postdocs at University of Michigan also to do an Agile marketing thing. So I sent an email to pda@umich.org. I figured no one will get back to me. It's like an anonymous email box, right? 3 seconds later, Michelle is the faculty in charge of the Postdoc Association. She replies to my email. She's like, oh my God, you're coming to town. I can't wait to see you. How many times do you want to talk? How big of a room do you need? My son lives here. We can all have dinner, you know. Like 20 years, right? So people that you like, you like. It's not insulting to not be in touch every minute. It doesn't mean they're not in your posse of relationships, okay? So do not panic about that. Just because you meet, people say to me, I don't want to meet too many people because I'll have too many friends. It doesn't work out. Okay, so a little bit about social media. I hope you are all of the age that you know, don't put dumb stuff on social media, okay? Because they look at this when you have jobs. If you are not staying in academia, so in academia, I don't know about your community, my community is on ResearchGate. Academia.edu, I think ResearchGate is winning, I'm pretty sure, yeah. But if you're leaving academia or considering it, you must be on LinkedIn. Everybody is. So I'm not going to go through the rules of LinkedIn here, but you know, these are some of the rules, and I'm happy to send you articles on sort of 20 best. You don't have to go down the LinkedIn rabbit hole, but you need to have a decent profile up. People look, it's just professional. I think LinkedIn will probably replace the resume soon. Actually, that's already happening at my company. People are giving me the link instead of the resume. Okay, so events, just really briefly. Not for everybody. If you are very introverted, don't even, I would only do the ones you absolutely professionally have to do. It's not a way to network for everyone. It is a good way to meet people that are way out of your comfort zone. So going to diverse types of events or different types of events is a way to meet very new types of people if you're exploring diverse options. So that's one thing. If you're bold about that kind of thing, it's a good way. I already talked about conversation. You have to be ready. So people that are good conversationalists practice in their heads. They think about what they're going to talk about. It's not haphazard. They have something to say, right? So if you go to an event with something to say, you're going to be in much better shape than if you don't. Okay, and so it is really hard. My goal for being at an event, if I meet one person that I want to follow up with later, I have had a successful evening. 4 hours in an event, 3 hours in an event, if I meet one person. So the idea is not to like, hi, here's my card, nice to meet you, I'm going to go find someone else. Hi, here's my card. That's totally not what we're talking about here. If you sit and talk for an hour with a person that's interesting, and that's great. That's exactly what we're looking for, But if you're talking with people that aren't, you're not hitting it off, it gets easier with practice to get away from that. So one of the great things about networking events is everyone's networking. Right? So you have a conversation, we don't really have that much to talk about. That person is doing this thing to you. Have you ever had that? Yeah, hi. Yeah, oh, it's nice to see you. Like, is there someone more interesting over there? So that's happened to me. So just walk away if they do that to you. They're doing it to you already. Or you say, oh, I'm going to go get some coffee. It's been really nice meeting you. And you leave. Okay? So that takes a little practice, but if you do it enough times, it gets a little easier. Okay. So my homework is, go to an event if you think this is something for you. Look for events that are local. Bring a friend. It's always easier to go to something with a friend, so then you can kind of help each other a little bit. So, and this is a really good way to start networking, is to start going to events. Okay, So you all have something to offer. So when I say, how can I help? In the community that you will be networking, you have something to offer. You have more experience than someone slightly earlier than you in the scientific training. You have knowledge, you have reading that only you are doing. You are probably a subject area expert on something, every one of you. So you have to own that. Sometimes the help comes in strange ways. So when I was power networking to get my job, when I got laid off from the biotech, someone set me up with coffee with a guy who I thought I wanted to work at that company. And the guy shows up 10 minutes late to this coffee meeting, and he looks terrible. His shirt's buttoned funny, his hair is doing this thing, and he's really, I'm like, maybe I don't want to work at that company. He's like, his eyes are like, so we talk for 15 minutes, and it becomes clear that the position I'm interested in is I'm not really qualified for. There's no way, and he clearly doesn't want to be there. But, I'm pretty out there, so I looked at him and I said, you look terrible. Are you getting enough sleep? I was like, you really, He's like, oh my God, my kids don't sleep. It's terrible. They're 4 and they're 6 and we're getting no sleep. And my wife, we don't do anything fun anymore. It's been years. We came to Boston for the museums. We can't go to the museum. It's terrible. I was like, well, you don't know about museum bingo? He's like, what's museum bingo? He said, well, it's actually scavenger hunt. We give my kids a list of things to find in the museum. Now my kids are grown up when they were little. And we give them a quarter for each thing they find, and then they get to go to the gift shop after. It usually buys us about an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, so don't go crazy, but at least you can get in there into the museum and enjoy it. So he's like, oh, that's a great idea. I said, and you can go online now and see what paintings they have. So, if they have a Corot, you say you find 2 cows. If they have a Picasso, you find a lady with 1 eye. You can actually set them up for this process, right? So he calls me. This guy did not want to meet with me, was really not happy. He links in with me a week later and sends me a thank you note that they went to the museum for 58 minutes. Okay. And, he's so grateful. They had such a nice time, and then they went for ice cream, and it was such and everybody was happy, and thanks so much for the parenting tip, right? So do you think if I need that guy again 5 years from now, he's going to remember me and he's going to help me? Yes, he is, right? So what goes around comes around. You all have good advice to give. So don't wait. Please start now. Do not do it in a dedicated fashion to get a job. Just start meeting people and being open to new relationships. And focus on people that you like and have something to say. So I have a lot more blogs on other little networking tips at Agene and on my LinkedIn profile. In particular, I didn't talk a lot about scientific conferences, but I have a blog called How to Make Friends and Meet People at a Scientific Conference at blog.agene.org, if you want to read that tonight, so you're ready for tomorrow. And this talk is actually on the website iBiology, which I strongly recommend. If you search for my name on iBiology, it's a video zine for scientists that has all kinds of career and great science talks also in your field as well. So thanks very much, and I think I can probably take one question before we break up. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
Can you give a couple examples of really good quality jobs that would fall outside, in that window of non-science jobs that you said that science it's not good at scientists take those jobs?
Not good at, I'm sorry.
You said
not good at the bench.
And you said here's the 80% of scientists that end up in science jobs,
yes.
20% that don't.
Oh.
What would be some good jobs that would fall into that pie slice that are not science jobs?
So I have no idea. I mean,
like a politician or something.
Oh, no, I think those can be science jobs. I wish you would all go into politics, please. Please. I'm one of those people who thinks we need more scientists. No, when I mean not science, I mean you're waiting tables.
I see, okay.
Yeah, you're you need money and you can't work in science because you didn't know, I don't mean, I think anything related using your science, right on. Policy, government, I would love to see more scientists in government.
Can you talk about how to get into politics or what you think is a good...
So I'm not, and wish I was so much. So what do? Follow Michael Eisen, who's running for Senate? The House? Senate? Senate, right? Yeah, go get on Twitter and everybody support him. And if you're in California, get out there and get out the vote. How to get into politics? Lots of great ways. So there's a lot of government jobs that go into the policy area. There are the AAAS fellowships. That's the best way to get started. They're often not full. They often don't get their whole class. Crazy not to look for those if you're interested in policy. Get involved in policy in the National Postdoc Association. which is advocating for change in government. Get involved in the Future of Research Symposia, which is another organization, FORSYMP, FORSYMP. It's the guy, Gary McDowell, sorry, I just blanked it, thank you. Gary McDowell is the executive director. They just became a nonprofit. I'm on their advisory board. They're pushing for policy change in science publishing, education, and policy. So that's a great way to start. Get on your own postdoc association, start raising, someone, who was it? Was the labor organizer, Sarah, right? Was a labor organizer. It's never too early. So we need huge policy change. I speak a lot to help you guys all get jobs, but one great way to give back and get known is to help the next generation. Can we make it a little better, for the next generation? Does that answer your question?
Can I just add in policy? Don't forget, my other hat is I'm on our local city council, and I'm also running for mayor.
Oh, cool! Yeah!
And my postdoc who's got a AAAS
Great.
fellowship. But don't forget about local politics. A lot of times we think about the overarching federal politics is where things bottleneck and become very partisan. And your local, get on a local board. I mean, there's parks boards, there's all kind of local boards where you can make your impact. It doesn't have to be in this very broad way, but within your community, which is, something you can do like once a week or once a month meeting. So really think about getting into something.